Same's.
Yeah. So, uh, tell me about yourself and like when some of your earliest memories as a kid growing up. Your family life. Like, what did that look like?
Oh, crazy. So I'm number four of six kids. My parents had a lot of kids. Well, we're Mexican. That's how we do it. So, but I grew up in Southern California in a little place called Victorville, which is, if you've been through there, you know why I left. It's just like it's a cool place to grow up. There's not much to do, And then especially in a big family, we're always tight with money. Six kids, one income, and things. So, um, but. But yeah, it was just a crazy time of just trying to finagle things to live a happy life, and my parents certainly struggled a lot. My dad working 18, 19-hour days just trying to provide, and my mom, she was, with us, but then also she had a lot of obligations with her church and her friends and things like that. So as it goes with big families, the older ones start watching the little ones, and that's kind of how it goes,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I know I come from a big family too. Like,
Yeah, that's right. We talk about that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And gets a little chaotic sometimes, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a good way to grow up, I think. Um, can you share a significant memory from your youth that has maybe stayed with you for a long time?
Oh, try to think. Huh. Like any significant memory, or is it got to
Yeah,
be like art centric or?
anything. Anything. Something significant, impactful.
Well, I knew when I was in kindergarten, we had that, hey, stand up. What do you want to be when you grow up, kind of deal. And I knew then I wanted to be an artist. And at the time, it was like in my idea of an artist, like a cartoonist. I like to draw things like that. So I drew everything all the time, and I just kind of stuck with that. So I've been a creative my entire life, and kind of love the arts and the art field and expression, expressing myself. So that coming home that day really kind of sticks with me because I remember walking in to the house, going to the kitchen, seeing my mom there, and like, oh, what'd you do today? Like, oh, they asked me what I want to be, and she's like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, I want to be an artist. She's like, okay, great, you know, and thinking that that's where it's gonna end because that's I'm five, so you don't really take all that seriously, but hearing that and hearing her excitement over it, I was like, yep, that's what I want to do, and so it just kind of stuck with me. But yeah, yeah, that's probably the most significant that stuck with me my entire life. Yeah,
Do you still have some of your artwork from when you made that decision?
I do. So I have like little drawings that's kind of made it over time to me. A lot of it didn't, but I do. And one piece particularly was when my mom realized that I did have some talent. It's because I would always give her pictures and she put it up on the fridge and that's where it kind of died. But she thought I traced it all. And so one day she sees me drawing, and so she's like, huh, and she sees my reference photo, and the reference is like this big, and I'm drawing on an 8 by 10. And she's like, you did that? You didn't trace it? And I go, no, no, I don't trace. I'm just doing my thing, shading and all this. And she's like, oh. She's like, okay, you're okay at this. So, I mean, not that I got signed up for any kind of classes or anything because we didn't have the money to do that, but anytime there was a art class to be done in the school, I would volunteer and I would try to get into it as much as I could. And then, of course, back then, no internet, no anything other than just books. So I go to the library and pick out drawing books, how-to books, and things like that, and kind of try to mimic what they were doing, but they didn't really explain it in a good way. So I was like, okay, I see what they had done. I'm like, oh, I'm just do that. Okay, here we go.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's cool.
hmm
And do you still draw then? Do you still?
I do a bit. Yeah, not recently, not just because it gets so busy at the studio and things like that. It's just kind of things get kind of pushed off to the side. But funny enough, both my girls they draw, and they are really really good at it. And my older one, she and I really connected on that first, and then my younger one saw what she was doing and wanted to do that as well. So she started practicing, and now they're both really really proficient at it. So they're doing doodles all the time, and now they're doing it on their phone, which is foreign to me because they're with their stylus. I'm like, what? You did all that? I'm like, damn, okay.
Yeah.
They go, yeah, I can shade, I can do this, I got layers. I'm like, God dang, like, okay, good on you.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're really good, and so it's very cool to see them kind of following in their own way, and seeing them express themselves in that way. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's gotta have a nice feeling.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And so to touch on that a little bit more, like what were your dreams and your aspirations, from that time period, and looking at the future when you were a kid, like what kind of things were coming to your mind?
Oh, it's well, one coming from, how do I say this nicely?
Just say,
From well, when you come from a very financially unstable household, there's lots of things that are out of your grasp, and that's just because it's told to you literally every day, of just not just society telling you, but also, my background is being Mexican, Latino, things like that, and then also my parents. My dad's old school Mexican, he was born in 1940. I got my talent from him, which he got it from his family, but it was never seen as a way to make money. It was always seen as just a thing that you kind of do, but you got to get a real job. And so, even though that was my passion, I really loved doing it, and I would paint, I would do all kinds of different mediums. It was never encouraged in a way to say, yeah, that's your dream. Go out there and we'll facilitate and support you. It was always, yeah, that's cool, but really, you need a job. You need a real job. And so, always with that in mind, I never saw it as a way for me to make a living at it. And even though in the back of my mind, I was always trying to strive for it and try to better myself. And in high school, I actually had built up my portfolio enough because I had a really, really good art teacher. And he was showing me that, no, you could do this. If this is what you love to do, you could do it. And we had taken a field trip to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, California, and I was blown away. I was like, this is where I want to be. I got to go to this school. So I worked hard on my portfolio, put it all together, and then reality kind of came in from my parents of, no, who's going to pay for that? We can't pay for it. That's not for you. And there's no future in it. It's all these negatives. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So I guess I'll let that kind of die a little bit. And then once I graduated high school, I moved out to here to Vegas and got my regular job, but always artistic and express myself through my drawings and things like that. But then never really made it or thought it could be a possibility up until about we got pregnant with my oldest daughter. And I told my wife then, I was like, because he's my first wife. I go, listen, I really want to get into photography. I don't know why. I think it's something I want to do. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but at least I can get some good pictures of the kid. And so I got my first camera and started to get really frustrated with it at first because I think like a lot of photographers can agree that you get it and you're thinking that cool, it's out of the box. I'm gonna get these amazing shots right out the gate and all that. But then I started using it and I got the same crappy shots that I got beforehand. So I'm like, huh, okay. After a few months of that, I enrolled in the School of YouTube and started to kind of figure out what all these different settings are, and to start to kind of mess with it, and then just kind of took over. And I just like, no, I could do this.
Yeah.
This is something I could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because like, you said that, hey, this is great, you've got this talent, this skill, but
Mm-hmm.
push that to the back burner. That's not what is gonna,
Yeah.
be your job.
Yeah.
Like knowing. So one, how did that make you feel then? And looking back on that, what would you do differently with that information with your own kids and people that you come in contact with now?
Oh, that's something I think about literally daily, of what I felt then and what I do now. So a lot of my parenting now and things is almost the exact opposite of what I got as a kid. So get all emotional about it. So with my older kids, I understand that as a parent, my role is support. I support them in whatever they want to do because it's not for me to say what they should do. If they want it, they want to do a thing, cool. Let me give you the support you need, give you all the ins and outs to make that a realization, you know? And so it hurts me in a way because I see just how effortlessly it could be to do that for somebody and versus what I got. And I'm just like, why? You're a kid. You know, you tell a kid, the sky's the limit, dream it, do it, you could be it. And when you try to implement that, then you get kind of shot down and you're like, well shit, then I guess I'll just be miserable at this job over here. So now with like my kids and anybody I really come into contact with, it's just like, why am I going to be the voice of negativity? That's what they want to do. Let's go do it. How can we do it? You know, instead of I can't, how can I? That's how I kind of try to see things. That's how I try to raise my kids. Of like, don't put up blocks for yourself. The world will do that for you. You know, don't tell yourself no. Let the world tell you no. You know, and so if you have a passion for something, if you feel like this is something you want to do, go for it. You know, we'll figure out how to, either make it a thing or monetize it in some kind of way, or just keep it for like a passion project to fulfill you personally. But that's how I see my role as like my kids and like when I give advice to like my clients and things like that, because I get a lot of solopreneurs, people who are just trying to live their dream. They left their job and all this. I'm like, cool. Like, why did you do that? What can I do to help facilitate this? And yes, you're in my studio and I'm facilitating in a certain way, but then also sometimes they need just to know that they got their back, and they're like, dude, this guy believes me. I don't know who this person is, but they're all jazzed out about it. They're hyped up about it. They're posting me up on Instagram and saying what a good person I am. I might be able to do something, and hopefully it helps them in some kind of way, but it does make me feel good to support them because that was the support I needed and still need that I don't get and I haven't got, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's how I see things.
I mean, that's a big deal to like encourage and provide that kind of enrichment. Like, hey, don't cast these things aside. They have value in your life, whether you're making money from it or not. But like, you need to nourish this. And I went through a lot of the same things too. But I think that's interesting, how you put that. Yeah. So let's talk about some of those challenges, like kind of going forward in this timeline. Like, what were some of the toughest challenges that you had to face, like, as you're growing up until this point in time right now, and how did you navigate that and overcome?
So some of the trouble, growing up, the challenges were, well, the monetary status thing, again, like just not having anything, luckily my grandmother, who was very well off, gave us a house to live in, which was, if we didn't have that, I don't know where we would be, but with that, it gave us a good place to call home, but otherwise the challenge is just money, not being able to do anything, it's just like even go to a movie, it was just like nuts. But so repeat some of that question again.
What were some of the toughest challenges you faced? How you navigated to overcome them?
It's like as far as like photography centric or just anything.
Just life. Just life.
Just life. Still facing them. But no, it's always about money. That's the thing. It's always about money. What you need to be comfortable, and what you see that you need to live a life that will bring you ultimately joy. Because that's what it is. And we all get kind of bogged down with numbers and like, I need to do this, this, and this. But then we find out that we're not happy. We got to the place we wanted to be, and we don't feel like we are there, and we don't feel like we've accomplished something. And it's supposed to feel different, even though we're there. And it's just like, so I think, not being so focused on the monetary aspect of it. Obviously we need money to live, but trying to find a way to be happy in that without stepping on somebody else to get there, which I hate.
Yeah.
And I won't do, and I've missed out on a lot of things because of that. Because I'm just like, that's not me. Like, I can't feel good about what I'm getting. So the challenges are just like trying to figure out how to get there. And that's always the difficult part, is just how do I get there and how do I maintain it? And then also, what does that look like when I'm there? What's going to be the next thing to do? And for me right now, it's like, how to become a full-time headshot photographer or portrait photographer. That was my thing. And so for the last, I'd say 4 years or so, there's just been like this clock going off in my head of going, I got to get out of my job. I got to do this. This is what I want to do. So how do I do this? And it's like, okay, set up this business, set up this, and do this, and do the marketing, and do the connecting, and do all the networking, and doing all this. And so all these different hats that you have to kind of wear, and none of them fit good. So it's just like, I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I just show up to a thing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is me. Hire me, please, without sounding desperate or whatever else. But overcoming that just by, like the saying goes, how do you eat an elephant? It's like one bite at a time. So it's like, okay, I take this little bite here. Let me research this bite and take this here and take this here. But then ultimately, as you're doing that little by little, things start to kind of come together as a whole. And you start seeing that, oh, shoot, I was way down here with like two things, and now I'm over here with 15 things. I'm not as bad off as I think I am. So keeping that in perspective and keeping yourself going, okay, remember you were here. You were here. So while you're complaining about this, you were there first. So you're going to be somewhere better. You just got to keep grinding, keep going at it, and keep just being you and being a good person, putting good things out there in the world. That's how I see it.
Yeah. So, what are some core values that you have that have guided you along the way, and have those values changed over time? As you've kind of grown up.
I think the core values that I have is just ultimately just to kind of be a good person, you know, and that's something that everyone should strive to kind of be, you know, just be good, put good out there. And how they've changed is do it non-blindly. So anytime I'm any kind of networking event or just anywhere with a lot of people, I just listen. I don't talk a whole lot. I just kind of listen, especially people are having a conversation. I just kind of listen. You can gauge the realness of somebody and their intentions. And so, you know, I'm I will get up the chair off my back to anybody, if they need it. But then seeing their character and go, oh, well, just be mindful of who you give that courtesy to, because that person on the surface might sound like they need a thing, but really they're just using you. And so you get taken advantage of. So they take advantage of that niceness. So for me, it's just, I try to live my life well and try to extend out hospitality and just kindness to anybody that comes across my way, because I feel that there's so much negative in the world already, and then, but none so more so than we are in ourselves, in our own mind. We are the most brutal to ourselves, and I've, I've had my fair share of, things like that, and just, it sucks, So if I can be around somebody and let them be good and be comfortable around me, or make them feel better about themselves just by being around, then that's my goal. And that's what I want to do,
Yeah.
because I think that will kind of spread, you know.
List those core values and a list. Like what would they be?
Empathy, for sure, because I think there's a big lack of empathy these days. And it's all trickling down from higher ups to down. It's just like, come on, man. Sympathy for sure, and while that sounds like they're kind of go hand in hand, it's just they are different things, Um, perspective, that's how I try to run everything from my business to my interactions with people. Is like I try to look at it from their perspective, and I try to give them experience based off of their perspective. How would I feel if I were in their shoes, kind of a thing. Because if you start doing that, then you can start, one, answer questions that you don't need to ask. You just kind of see it. But two, it just makes for a better relationship, I think. And let's see. Yeah, I think those would be the kind of things. Just kind of always do the best you can, you know. Try to be the person that other people can look at and go, oh, yeah, like that's a solid person. Um, live your life, and I've always kind of tried to do this. Live your life in a way to where somebody hears something bad about you, they won't believe it. because they go, no, 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 I know that person. Like, unless there's some really damning evidence, I'm not going to believe that,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. So I think that would be a good list that can go down.
Cool. All right. I'm going to shift gears a little bit.
Hmm.
What advice would you give to your younger self navigating life, knowing what you know now?
Oh man, I would give advice to my younger self of staying more true to who you are and don't let other people tell you who you are and who to be. Because I've lived my whole life trying to fit this model for other people. Um, as a kid, your parents, they have a certain idea for you and they want you to do certain things in their way and they have it all mapped out for you. And I try to do that, and we always butted heads because it never comported with me. I want to do this thing, and you're telling me I can't. Why can't I? And there's no good reason, so I'm gonna do this thing anyway. Um, but yeah, I think that would be it. Of just try to discover who you are, and don't let anybody tell you different, because that's you got to live with yourself, and that's ultimately I think the thing I would do. Yeah.
Definitely see the Marty McFly moment, going back in time.
Yeah.
Yourself,
No, don't do this. Invest in Yahoo.
um, Looking back, what were like some of your fears growing up, and maybe some insecurities, and how did you overcome those?
Ooh, fears growing up. So a lot of my fears growing up would be, again, I mean, living in a place to where, our gas was turned off regularly, our electricity was turned off regularly. Those were my fears of like not being able to provide for myself and my family in that way, And again, no real shade to my parents about it. They did what they could, but it's like it's scary, and I don't want my kids to get donation bags of clothing, dropped off at the house. I don't want my kids to have to feel that embarrassment of wearing those clothes to school and the kids saying, "Oh, my mom donated that to you. Those are my clothes," kind of thing, which that happened to me many times. um, and just like that's always been that fear of me of just like not wanting to stay in that box of just being poor all the time, And so now I I will work my ass off to make sure that doesn't happen, and that's what I do, so that my kids can grow up not having that fear and being privileged in that sense of just like when they hear stories about my past, they go, well, really, and they can't see it. I'm like, because I did all this work to make sure you don't see it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
let me get some water real quick.
yeah. So here's another one. How have your relationships within your community influenced your life? And could you share a story, you know, from something like that?
Well, my community right now would just be like kind of like the headshot crew, and so that has changed my life big time, and I can't thank everybody in the crew enough for helping me. I mean, yourself, help me get to where I am here because, and funny enough, it all started with me watching a YouTube video, while I was editing a family shoot, for little to no money. And so I'm like, and I see this video of Peter Hurley, and while I love him so much, and he has given me tools to be who I am today, it's so much more than just him. So while he's my man, there's been so many people within the crew that has helped me and that continue to help me to succeed, and it's just amazing. For instance, one meeting him was okay. So let's back up. So in my 20s, I worked at a casino called the Hard Rock Hotel Casino, and I was security there. I did a lot of special events. I've met every celebrity I've ever wanted to meet. I've dealt with rock stars, just everybody, and not one time I ever get starstruck. Well, one time I got a little bit with Slash. I was on his duty to bodyguard him for the day, And I go up there, I'm like, oh damn, here he is in Slash. Oh my god, you know. But I kept it cool, you know. But other than that, I just don't, you know, because I'm there to do a job, and that's what it is. Um, until I met Peter. So I'd been following him on Instagram and things like that. And I'm like, okay, he's at this conference out here in Vegas. I got to go. I have this book. I got to get it signed. And I see him like, oh shit, here we go. Butterflies, all kinds of stuff. But after talking to him for a bit, I'm like, oh, this is just a cool guy, you know? Cool. All right. Okay. Now I can go back to myself. Let the fanboy go. But then introducing me to Elena, to Pedro George, to you, um, and then oh, there's so many that's helped me out. You know, Richard Wayne, he's been there in helping me out. Sarah Adams as well. She's does all my website stuff and things like that. And so those relationships were only possible because of joining the crew and only because of being in a place where we all knew that we're not competition with each other. We're there to help build everybody up because we have to stop thinking that we're islands unto amongst ourselves and be like, no, no, this is mine, 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 and go, oh, okay, cool. Can I help you? Okay, because I need help. So let's just make this a symbiotic thing. But as far as like a story goes, um, well, one like I know you haven't been, which I gotta get you there to the hideaway, man. There's so many stories of just the camaraderie there, but also the information that's passed along just freely of like marketing and how to behave in front of a camera and how to do this and how to do that. But being there and getting up at like 6 in the morning, breakfast at 8 o'clock, and then all day working, all day going to classes, all day doing that thing, and then all of us stay up until 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, go crash up for a couple hours and do it all over again the next day. It's so just like inspiring to be around so many amazing artists all the time, and then picking and pulling, you know, certain things that they're doing. Like, oh, I never seen it done that way. I'm gonna try to do that. You know, and like, oh shit, like that's Ivan. It's Ivan Weiss. Oh my God, here he is. He's working. He's working. Let me link some videos and go, oh, that's how he did that. Cool, 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 cool. Let me see if I can try to implement that into my work. You know, so it's a lot of those kinds of things of just like aha moments and inspiration that kind of happen.
Yeah. It sounds like, if you were to follow this thread, like, pulling the thread on a sweater
Mm-hmm.
of, you know, doodling and drawing as a kid into where you are now,
Mm-hmm.
like, what does that thread look like?
Ooh. it's it's a lot of just starting off drawing on pieces of paper to putting it up on my wall to painting to using charcoal pastels and then ultimately photography. It's just all been a way to kind of express myself and to showcase the world as I see it and try to put that out there and see if anybody kind of likes it. If nobody else likes it doesn't mean then that's fine. It's just I like it. And it's just been one of creativity and constantly trying to be better than who I was before. And just by doing that work and just doing what you do, there's no choice but to get better because you just start to kind of learn subconsciously of what you did right, what you did wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And what's with your art? What's one of your greatest personal accomplishments that you continue to look back on and you have a great deal of satisfaction?
Oh. The one thing I can say, and it happens almost in every session in creating, because I mean I love photographing people, but I like showing them, and I get really really that fulfillment aspect of it when they finally see themselves how I see them, how their loved ones see them, and it's without that filter of self-deprecation and the perceived flaws that we all kind of have because we're all used to seeing them and that's all we fixate on. And then seeing themselves, they go, whoa, like, and they think it's a filter, they think it's whatever else, and it's not. I go, no, this is you, you know. And that moment when they can't stop looking at themselves and they're just like, whoa, wow, and they start going through the shots. They go, oh, I love this one, I love that one, I love this one. It's at that point, it's no longer like I'm like oh shoot, I'm making money now. Like they want to buy five. It's like no, it's seeing their reaction to themselves, and seeing that they haven't seen themselves ever like this, and they see that they are beautiful, they are handsome, they are these people that their loved ones perceive them to be, the strong, confident person that gets the job done. That is, it's so, I just love it so much, and I that's what keeps me going. Because when they sit there and like, oh my god, I love that, I love this, I never saw myself like this before. One or a couple of times, people breaking down, crying in the studio because they're just like, this is amazing. Like, how did you do this? So, like, we were just screwing around. And I go, yeah, but you weren't worried about the lights and the cameras and this and having to put a front on. You were just being you. And this is what people see. And this is what's going to get you those clicks and bring clients to you or get you that job or whatever. This is what it is, you know? And I just love that. It's just so cool to be able to do that for somebody, you know?
Yeah, the experience of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. I love that part too. And I think being able to do that as a job, as a career, is
Mm-hmm.
like a real blessing. Because,
It really is.
yeah,
Because how many times do you get that feeling in your life, right? You're not going to get that feeling, as the client when you go to pump your gas. You're not going to get that feeling when in a meeting. You're not going to get that feeling anywhere. It's just, and so when you get it, you're just like, whoo, man, like that's you made a little bit of a difference there.
yeah. All right, we're gonna shift a little bit here. So when you reflect on who you are and your life as a whole, um, you know, what do you hope will be your most significant contribution to society and to your legacy? Um, how would you want that to be remembered?
I think for my legacy is always trying to make people feel good, to where they think of me, they think of how they felt being around me and how I made them feel. I think that's I think that's translated more than anything else could be done, and obviously looking at a picture, and not just for them, but for their generations to come. They go, oh wow, that's great grandma. Oh, fuck, look at that. And I facilitated that. And so for me, even regardless if they remember me at all or not, it's just that feeling will live on. And I really dig that thought of just making people feel a thing even though they don't know who made it. And I really enjoy that. And so at some point they might look it up and think, oh, that was Mondo. Oh shit, like I love that work. That's so cool. You know. But I would like to be seen as a good friend, a teacher of sorts, and somebody that people feel comfortable enough to be their true self around. And I think that is a very good place to be, and something worth, you know, withstanding that test of time of like, oh yeah, that's be like this guy.
Yeah,
I like this guy.
it's cool. And so, as far as like, um, you know, what would be what would be your most significant contribution to doing that? What do you think that would be? Like,
I don't know. My biggest contribution to doing that. Hmm. I guess I mean just in the product I provide, and then I mean in this even outside the studio, just like person to person, I don't know. I mean, always kind of being there for people, I guess, is my way to kind of contribute. So regardless, get a phone call, I go, if I can,
yeah,
but most times I can't. So I'll finagle something to get to be able to be there, you know. But but yeah, I don't know. Like when you say contribution, like you mean like a physical contribution or like a expand on that. Let's see.
just any kind of um, what's going to be the defining part of who you are, what you put in to the
Hmm.
world, and what's going to be the result of what you put in.
Well, I think by living by the example that I try to set forward, hopefully other people pick up on it and they want to mirror it in some kind of way in their own fashion, and hopefully that kind of spreads out. So I think in that regard of, doing that for people and people just subconsciously or consciously doing it themselves, will help make more people feel good, you know.
And so, two-part question. We'll do the
Hmm.
first one. What are some of your hopes and dreams for the future right
Hmm. My hopes and dreams for the future right now would be, my kids are getting older, and so being able to facilitate a future for them to where they can go out and achieve what they want to achieve, by me supporting them either financially or emotionally or doing that, you know, um, that is huge for me because I was never afforded that with my folks. So being able to facilitate that for them, I think will be ginormous. And obviously, they won't know and understand what it took to get there, but um, at least they can go. My dad always was there. He's always supported. And I can be here because of that there, you know. And then for like my wife and I, um, well, no more kids, that's for sure. So that's we're done, three and done. But I mean, I would love it to be, for future things of just being able to have our time and to go explore the things that she's always wanted to explore, whether it be trips to other places or just um, emotionally and physically of just doing what we need to do to be there for each other, and I think that's something that I would really like to see happen in the future. Because right now, as things go with kids are little, everything's kind of crazy and going nuts. But but it's just but we're all working towards that end of retirement and living in a way that we just want. You know.
now? Yeah. And opposite of that,
Hmm.
what are some of your worries and fears for the future?
Oof. Oh man, those are always present. Those worries and fears. Something happening to the family, something happening to me, more so to me, because you know if I go, what happens? Is are my kids going to be able to achieve the things they want to achieve? Or are they going to be, able to go to a school that they want to go to? Are they going to be able to do these things? Um, Something happens to them. Something happens to my wife. Something happens to the business. You know, those are always forefront of my mind, and I actively work to make sure that those things don't happen. But of course, you can't foresee everything. You can't foresee an accident. You can't foresee these things. So it's just like, oh shit. Like, what happens? Oh my God. It's so scary, you know?
Um, Shift gears a little bit. Tell me a story that maybe you've never told anybody else. Anything at all.
Story I've never told anybody else. I don't know. I'm pretty open. Like, I'm a big book. I guess people just ask me, like, oh, I'll tell you whatever.
Yeah.
Um, let's see.
Maybe not even a story. What's something that maybe you've never really talked about, like in great detail that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Um, Shoot, just trying to think. I have lived a very colorful life. So it's just like there's so many things that I have done in my life that, well, one, it helped me to be who I am today. So it's like, again, going back to that perspective. Um, so growing up, I was brought up Mormon, which that brings a lot of baggage, and paradigms and trauma. But then also moving out on my own, working full time since I was 13, moving out on my own at 18, and moving to Vegas. That gives you a lot of perspective. My first job out here was working at a strip club as a DJ, and then working as another strip club as a bouncer, and then getting into the Hard Rock when I was 21 as security. And then also friends I've met along the way of just like they're in the alternative kink community and learning about that. And then it's just like there's so many things that gave me the perspective of of just the world of the like, okay, yeah, we're all living the same life, but we all have a different perspective of it, and we all kind of do it differently, but we're all doing the same things, and it's how we do it. But um, like, I mean, going to some of these parties that they that they were involved in were just nuts and crazy, and then let's see, my wife and I, we on our honeymoon we went to a alternative lifestyle resort for our honeymoon just because we're like, hey, this might be fun. Let's just go and just see, what's going on, and then working in the corporate world and seeing how that's kind of done, and then working with rock stars and celebrities and things like that. But what's a really cool story is like, okay, when Dave Navarro and I think was it Carmen Electra? No, he was getting married. So they had like the bachelorette party at the Hard Rock in the new penthouse, things like that. So I was working that event, and they were like, okay, no cameras at all, no cameras. MTV's there, but once they're gone, make sure there's no cameras at all. So I'm like, all right, cool. What they showed on TV was just the tip of the iceberg of the shit that went on there. And I'm walking through, I'm like, oh my goodness, because your elbow's supposed to be at the high end there? Like, holy smokes, look at you guys. Good on you. Bravo. you know? And just like, I'm like, oh shit. Like, that was just nuts, that party. But then working other parties, for different celebrities and things like that, it's just, it's interesting to see how other people kind of do things. And when money really is no object, the shit they get involved in. For instance, who was it was with, okay, no, I don't want to say that because there's a chance I might work with them later. So another story. So we get called up for noise complaint, which at the Hard Rock is really, really common. Noise complaint up in one of our suites, and there's shattering bottles. And they're like, what the fuck, shattering? So we look up who it is, and we know who it is. It's this guy, big money guy, but he also likes to party really, really hard. So me and our partner go up there, and we're knocking on the door, no answer, no answer. We open the door, we walk in, turns around, Mondo, oh my God. Sorry, are we being loud? And he's drunk and, high and things. He's got two ladies there as well, and not a lot of clothing on them all. So I'm like, hey man, like, you gotta stop. We got noise complaint. You're breaking bottles. What's going on? I look over at the wall, and there is a bullseye on the wall. And I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? It's like, oh man, we're playing beer bottle darts. You should play with us. I'm like, no, I cannot do that. I work here. He's like, oh, here, I'll show you how it's done. So you get a beer, you chug the whole thing, and then you throw it at the wall, and if it sticks, you get the points. And there, with each point, there's money involved, whatever. So that's why they were shattering everywhere and making all kinds of mess. And I go, no, man, I can't do that. I can't do that at all. He walks over to me and he hands me $1,000 chip, and he's like, can you do it now? I'm like, yeah, I get that beer. So crack it open, chug it, I chuck it at the wall. I'm like, all right, cool, we're done. Now we got to move rooms. Obviously, we got to charge you for this stuff. And he's like, oh, no, it's whatever, just bill me. It ended up being like 30 grand worth of damages he had done, but he really didn't care. But it was a fun time, man. And the guy, my partner that was with me at the time, he was like, for real? Like, we'll split it. It's okay. So.
Let's go down that rabbit hole real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So, living in Vegas is a unique situation.
Ooh, yeah.
Let's do two stories. What is aside from the one you just said,
mm-hmm.
what is one of the craziest, funniest things that people probably wouldn't believe?
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah.
Especially working the Hard Rock was it, man. So I worked there. I think I started working there like 2 or 3 weeks after my 21st birthday, and I was there for like 9 years, and doing security. The first 5 or so years of that, doing special events and concerts and things like that. But so much. So another story along that same kind of vein. So we get called out. No, it was me and this other guy. We're outside. He's having a smoke. I didn't smoke, so I'm just hanging out there. And we kept hearing these noises. Like, what are these noises going on? Like, what is this? We hear like panting and things like that. So like, okay, Hard Rock, People are screwing all the live long day, everywhere. And we're like looking around. We're looking around the bushes. We're like, Where's this coming from? And like, it's got to be close because we can kind of hear it. And then I look up, and legit on the roof, over the edge, is this gal, and she's being taken care of real well. And we're like, I've been up there. It's not easy to get up to on the ledge. And so we all run up there because we're afraid that she's gonna fall over and something happens. Get up there, and they had to climb over all the scaffolding, all of the air conditioners to get on top of that ledge, and they were just boning down right there. In the meantime, we had Metro on the way because like that's a huge liability for us, and we're like, dude, you can't. Come on, man. Like, what are you doing? So they get down like, oh, we just want to have a little fun. I'm sorry. We're sorry if we caused a ruckus. We're like, well, now you got to talk to Metro because we're pressing charges. This is not cool. But that was an interesting thing. Yeah. Ooh, here's a good story. Here's a good story. So now I was okay. Ooh, can I say this name also? No, maybe you can bleep it out if you want. But you know what though? It's
Yeah.
because it should be public record because Metro did get called out, so people could find it. Okay, so and what was oh geez, now her name Jamie Presley. So she got hired to do a spot at the Hard Rock to do whatever. So she was there with her husband and a friend of her husband's. And so one night, she and her husband went upstairs to go to sleep, and her friend going back and forth, unbeknownst to me, I don't know who he was or whatever. He's going up and down, the elevators, and then we get a call for a fight going on in one of the rooms. And we're like, oh shit, what's going on? What room is it? We look it up, and it's a NRG, so non-registered guest. And we're like, okay, so that's somebody. And we get up there, and there's just blows going down. Two girls are fighting, blood everywhere, all kinds of things going on. And I see who it is. I see it's Jamie. I go, oh shoot. I go, okay. We broke it all up. Get her aside. Get this other girl aside. And we're like, all right, what is happening? What's going on? Because last I saw, you went upstairs to go to bed. She goes, we were upstairs sleeping, and this bitch comes in our room, and she starts fighting me while I'm sleeping, and so I'm just defending myself, and this, and this. I'm like, ooh, okay. And I see the girl, and I recognize her from her kind of mulling around the casino floor for a minute. I'm like, oh, okay. So I start talking to her, and she's drunk and on all kinds of substances, so she doesn't know what day it is. And I'm like, how did you get up here? Because you need a key to get up here or be escorted up. So what happened? So it turns out, now, we had to arrest both of them and take them both down to holding. And Jamie's like, listen, I can't be seen handcuffed. Is there any way? So I took my jacket off, I put it over her, took her the back way. There's still cameras, but she was spared having to go through the casino floor. And once Metro gets there, we get the whole story of what happened. So her and her husband went upstairs to sleep. The friend, who's also staying with them, goes downstairs, finds this girl, brings her upstairs to have fun with. This girl sees Jamie sleeping, for whatever reason, flips out and starts beating her up. Jamie turns the tables. Now, this girl, holy smokes, man, she could throw down, like seriously. Because this other gal, she was like, wow. Like, and to be sleeping in the middle of it and all of a sudden have to fight. I'm like, did you grow up in a rough neighborhood? What happened? Like, that just doesn't happen. That's like self-defense. But so she went up there, started fighting and all that, and then Metro arrests the girl. Jamie had a bunch of pictures taken of like all the the bruises and things like that. But that was a crazy night. Oh my gosh. And she probably would remember, but I've never told that story because it was just one, I had to, sign papers and all that stuff, which I probably still in effect. But again, it's public record, so no, it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll find out otherwise if this gets published anywhere.